Hey guys, we got a bonus episode for you today with Olympic gold medal wrestler, maybe the best wrestler in the United States, Kyle Snyder. It's coming up right now on Sports Spectrum.
This is Sports Spectrum, the intersection of sports and faith, where we bring Jesus back into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Sports Spectrum. I am Jason Romano. This is the Sports Spectrum podcast. Our email address, jason@sportspectrum.com, and our website, sportspectrum.com. Make sure you bookmark the website and go check it out. Tons of content on there, articles, podcasts, you name it, devotionals. They're all there at the website. Also want to encourage you to sign up for our weekly newsletter, which you can do at the website. It is free. It's an email that comes into your inbox every single week, just updating you on the latest content, the news that you might have missed, the stories, the podcasts that you might have missed. And it is free. But when you sign up right now, we have a free gift for you. It's a 10-day daily devotional that you can do together with another person, with a team, or by yourself. But here's the uniqueness of this devotional. It's written by professional athletes, the athletes themselves from the worlds of baseball and football and basketball, softball, you name it, have written the devotionals themselves. And this is a gift from us to you for free when you sign up for our Sports Spectrum newsletter. Again, it's right at the website, sportspectrum.com. Click that little newsletter icon at the top, and you are good to go to sign up for our newsletter and to receive our free gift, a 10-day daily devotional written by professional athletes, courtesy of Sports Spectrum. We're really excited today, a little bonus episode for you with the decorated Olympic gold medal wrestler Kyle Snyder. In 2016, man, that was quite the year in 2016. He's the youngest wrestler ever to win the World, the NCAA, and the Olympic Championships in the same year. A triple crown of American wrestling that has not been accomplished in a generation until he completed that sweep in the 2016 Rio Olympics. Of course, his college career saw him dominate at Ohio State, the Ohio State University, and now he's preparing for the 2020 or 2021, however you want to refer to it, Summer Olympics. Last year, the pandemic affected everyone, including canceling an Olympic Games or postponing an Olympic Games, and so now Kyle is preparing for the 2021 Olympics. And my partner in crime, Cole Claiborne, who's a producer and a writer with us here at Sports Spectrum, he had a chance to catch up with Kyle Snyder, and it's here for you to listen to right now, that conversation on Sports Spectrum.
Kyle, welcome back. This is your second time on the show. How you doing, man?
Doing good. Appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, so this is a very unique year for Olympic athletes. It's technically the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Obviously, it's happening in 2021 because of the coronavirus. And just as an athlete, what has the past year been like for you training? Obviously, thinking that the Olympics were going to happen last year, the virus, postpones it a year. How have you navigated that as an athlete, just mentally and physically?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a good year. I moved from the Ohio Regional Training Center to the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club at Penn State. So I've been here for a little over a year, and I was learning a lot of new technique, a lot of new mindset things. And so the year for me was really good because, it's one thing to apply this stuff when you're training, but it's another thing to apply it in competition, and that takes time. So, I was able to use that time to, visualize myself hitting the technique in competition, practice it on high level training partners. And, so then now I feel like I'm really starting to get used to this stuff, and, we'll be able to use it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know Big Ten, obviously a very wrestling heavy conference. You were a star at Ohio State. Just you kind of hit it on there, but how have you seen yourself grow just as a wrestler from the time that you were in college? Obviously, you were very successful. I think you only suffered, what was it, 4 or 5 college losses. I think most of those came in your freshman year. So how have you grown as a wrestler? And you talked about the technique you've learned there, but just from even maybe the last Olympics till now, how have you improved as a wrestler?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of things. You get to a certain point where you're at such a high level that all the changes are pretty small. But it's been good to be in a different room, kind of with a different philosophy and different feel and positions, to where you can kind of like everything's new again. And it's like you just started. So it's just to have that freshness. People say things different, and you train differently. And, so all of that put together, I think, has been really good for me. And I feel really confident about the way that I'm going to compete this summer.
That's great. Yeah. So last year, let's kind of go back to 2020 when you were informed that the Olympics were going to be delayed a year. What was kind of your initial reaction to that, and how have you navigated that? I know, like I was talking to you before we recorded, I was talking to a rugby player last year, and he was kind of looking at it positively, saying, we've got some guys hurt now. This will give us a year to get healthy. We'll be stronger. I'd imagine that most athletes probably try to take a positive outlook to that. But whenever you found out the news that the Olympics were going to be delayed, what was kind of your initial reaction to it? And what's this last year been like to prepare for it?
Yeah, I mean, I was like, there's nothing I can do about it. Yeah. I obviously was feeling ready to compete then. And I just got back from the Pan Am Championships, where I wrestled well. So, I thought I was going to, but when that happens, I just know that God's in control. Mm-hmm. And if God is relaxed, then his children should be relaxed, and there's nothing to stress out about. So I wasn't stressed, just continued to work on the things that I could work on. And really it was things were really shut down for like a month. So I went back home to Maryland, and honestly, it was like, when all the kids are back in the house, I got a big family and we're all really close, and my wife is really close with her family. So it's pretty cool. At the end of it, I was like, man, you know what? We should get a COVID every 10 years, but obviously not the sickness, but, just kind of like it brought us all back together, and we were having pickleball tournaments, and, like it's just not often to where we don't have anything going on, no one can go to work and stuff like that. So I was very thankful for that time period, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know you've talked before about how, wrestling doesn't define you. Your success on the mat doesn't define you. Who God says you are is what defines you. And so whenever when the world did kind of slow down a little bit, what did you do to kind of fulfill your time? Obviously, you maybe weren't able to wrestle or do certain things that you're used to doing. So what did you do to fill your time with? And how did that season maybe help your relationship with God? Like, were you able to spend more time in the Bible and doing other things like that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm always pretty consistent with my studying and prayer and all of that. So, but continuing to grow, continuing to focus on God and hear what he wants to teach me. And, I spent time visualizing and kind of like using my mind more to picture myself in the competition arena, and the way that I would feel and how I'm going to handle different emotions and all that type of stuff, so that when I got there, it was I had a plan, and when I do all of that, I'm always asking God to, what do you want me to think? How do you want me to warm up? How do you want me to compete here? And so it just gives me more time to think about those things and be more prepared.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great approach. So as you look ahead to the Olympics this summer, what kind of expectations are you putting on yourself, or just what's kind of your approach? Versus maybe is it any different than what it was in the previous Olympics where you won a gold medal? Are you wanting to defend that? Obviously, I assume you want to defend that, but is it sort of still the same mindset year to year whenever you go to each Olympics, or has maybe the pandemic and the different perspectives you've gained in the last 5 years, has it changed maybe your approach as an athlete at all? Just kind of what is your approach for this Olympics versus what the previous one was?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's pretty similar. Like, every tournament I go to, my expectation is to win.
Right.
And not just win, but dominate, So I'm not looking to have any close matches in the semifinals and the finals. That's the expectation that I have. And I believe that's the way. I believe God's given me these gifts, and he wants me to compete in a dominant way. And that's what now it's up to me to be faithful and train the way that he wants me to and get ready for it. But like, having said that, I don't feel any pressure in regards to defending a title, or, to me, like, that title's 5 years ago. Like, I'm not really concerned about that type of stuff. I'm right. More focused on what's going to be happening, what's happening right now.
That's great. Yeah. I was doing some reading, and it seemed like, I guess the last Olympics and some of the surrounding tournaments, there was a Russian wrestler that was kind of your big competition. Is that still the case, or is there a new person on the scene that is coming for your title?
There's a couple other good guys, but he's the Russian. Me and him are 1-1.
I think it's Sadulev. Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Yeah, Sadulev.
Okay. So, and what are you still in the same weight class, or what weight class will you be wrestling in this same Olympics? Weight. Same weight. Okay. And that was the correct me if I'm wrong. Is it 213? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
213. Okay. So, for those that are listening to this, that maybe are unfamiliar with wrestling, can you maybe just kind of describe, like, you got different weight classes and you've got different, just how is the Olympic wrestling tournament formatted so that those that are watching, maybe can follow along and know what they're watching if they're not super familiar with wrestling?
Yeah. So, I mean, I compete on August 6th and 7th in Tokyo, and you'll wrestle 3 matches the first day. You'll wrestle the finals the second day. You got to weigh in the morning both times. So in kilos, it's 97 kilo. There's 6 weight classes in men's freestyle, 6 weight classes in women's freestyle, and 6 weight classes in Greco. And weight class starts in pounds. It goes from 125 to 143 to 163 to 189 to 213 to 275. So those will be the 6 athletes that are out there competing, and each country will have one guy. So there'll be a total of 16 guys per weight class. And that's the interesting thing about the Olympics. Actually, the Olympics is easier than the World Championships, because in the Worlds, anybody can enter, but in the Olympics, you have to qualify. So there's only 16 people. And, you got a couple countries that really aren't that strong in wrestling that qualify because of their region. So, I mean, you could end up wrestling a couple people that aren't really, too technical or whatever. So,
right. Yeah,
that's the way the wrestling works.
Awesome. So, for those of us that have never had the chance to be in the Olympics or experience all that, just kind of what's the experience like as an athlete? Living in the Olympic Village, going through the opening ceremonies, all that kind of stuff. I mean, how much pride do you feel being able to wear red, white, and blue for America, and just being able to experience all of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a pretty awesome experience, and like the most fun part, I think, is just being with the team, like the wrestling team, the 5 other guys that I'm with. That's the most fun part to me, and just training with them and the coaches and hanging out before practice and stuff like that. And we actually don't really spend much time in the Olympic Village. In 2016, I was there for 3 days.
Okay.
And then we go to a private compound where USA Combat Sports train. And so that's where we are for the majority of the time. And wrestling is typically one of the last competitions. So that's we train and we get prepared, and that's pretty much it.
So what do you do in an event like that where, you do a lot of traveling? This is not obviously the only time you travel to wrestle, but maybe whenever you do go out of town, and maybe it's a place that maybe you'd like to be able to travel and be more of a tourist, a little bit. How do you stay focused while you're there to make sure that you are taking care of business, that you're training, preparing for the match, while also maybe still getting to, have some life experiences that you may not otherwise have? How do you balance all of that?
I think it's being present each day. I think that's why faith is so important to me. All the ways that God has benefited my life, because, I'm able to enjoy the moment, but I'm also able to stay focused and train the way that He wants me to, and all of that. So that's the way I go about it.
Let's take a quick break from this conversation to tell you a little bit more about Sports Spectrum's weekly newsletter and this very cool free gift we have for you. So if you go to the website, sportspectrum.com, you'll see an area up at the top. It says newsletter. You click that button, and it takes you to an area where all you have to do is put in your name and your email address, and you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter. It's free. You can subscribe. The newsletter just kind of keeps you up to date on all the different articles and podcasts and things that we're doing here at Sports Spectrum. It's free. We don't, inundate your email box every single day with, what we'd like to say nonsense or garbage. We are intentional about what we put in this newsletter, and we are intentional about not sending you 17,000 emails every single day. So you can sign up for our newsletter at sportspectrum.com. But here's the thing. We got a free gift for you now. If you sign up today for our newsletter, just for signing up, we'll give you a free 10-day digital devotional to download right to your email, featuring professional athletes such as Kirk Cousins, Adam Wainwright, and more. And now this devotional is unique because it's written by the athletes themselves. It doesn't just feature their stories. The athletes actually wrote the devotional that we're offering to you for free. Again, sign up at sportspectrum.com, click that little newsletter icon at the top, sign up, and you'll get that free 10-day devotional. And it's a really neat devotional, too, because you can go through it with a team, you can go through it with a small group, or you can just read it yourself. But I would highly suggest if you have a team of 10, 15 people and you want to go through a devotional for 10 days, you can go through this Sports Spectrum 10-day devotional with the athletes writing the devotionals themselves for free. And it's available right there to sign up at sportspectrum.com. Click that newsletter icon, put in your name and your email address, and you're good to go at sportspectrum.com.
And then whenever you're there, obviously you're pretty regular with your Bible studies. There's nothing that's changed a whole lot over the last year or so. But whenever you're there, how do you make sure that you do make time for, being in the Word and being able to focus? Because I'm sure you got people pulling you different ways to do. I don't know if it's media or if you've got training or whatever the obligations are being on Team USA. How do you make sure that you still create time for being with God?
Well, that's my number one priority. So, that's the way. And some days are busier than other. And that just means that you stay focused on them throughout the day when you're doing whatever you're doing. In regards to media, I don't really take on very many interviews and things like that because I don't really care about media and all that stuff. I just want to compete the way that God wants me to and be focused on that. So I'm not too focused on like building myself up or a brand or whatever. I want to go out there and win and dominate. So that's what I'm focused on. And so and then just start Bob. We'll do you. Sometimes there's a kind of like a faith like pastor type guy that will come down with us and he'll run Bible studies. But if there isn't, then just have Bible studies with the guys on the team because a lot of them are Christians.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
And you've talked before in previous interviews and stuff about how your coaches at the training center were really influential in your faith journey. I assume you're still pretty close with them, and what's that relationship like, and how have they continued to pour into you and your walk with Jesus?
Yeah, very close. Coach Zadek, Coach Slay, and Gene Davis. Coach Zadek's the head coach of the Olympic team, so I'm with him a lot, talk to him a lot. He's still a mentor for me. Coach Slay, I talk to a lot. He's a head coach at the Pennsylvania Regional Training Center, and my wife actually lived in Philadelphia, so I spent a lot of time with him while he was there, and he is one of my coaches and helps me still today. And Gene Davis I see out when I'm in Colorado Springs, and just continuing to go to studies and just people that you feel comfortable around, and you can talk about what you're studying in the Bible or what God is teaching you and things like that.
Yeah. Who are maybe some other people that have really poured into you, maybe in your, that was, I guess, high school when you moved out there. You finished your last year of high school at the training center, and then they kind of got into your life around that time. But as you've kind of gotten a little bit older now, out of college and that sort of stuff, who are maybe some other people that have helped you in your walk with Jesus and helped you grow as a Christian?
My strength coach, Neil Sarafinus, is a very strong Christian, and he's helped me. I can't even, he's helped me so much. It's just amazing the way that the example he set for me. And then Don and Connie Frederick, I do Bible studies with them each week, and they're amazing examples. John Bardis is a guy, friend of mine, man of faith. Tom Ryan at Ohio State really was encouraging to me to continue to grow, and Tom Rode when I was at Ohio State. And then there's a lot of people here in State College, Coach Kale and Coach Casey Cunningham and Farner and Cody. Really, the whole staff is very faithful. So there's been a lot of people.
So how'd you get hooked up with Penn State? Now, obviously, you're an Ohio State graduate, but I know Penn State's obviously got a very strong program. I'm from Evansville, Indiana, where there's a really strong high school program there, and there's a kid actually from that high school that wrestles at Penn State, I think. And so I know that Penn State is a really strong wrestling program. But how did you get hooked up with training out there, and what brought you out there?
Yeah, well, my wife was applying to medical school, and so she was applying all over the country. And I was going to go train wherever she got into school. And then she made the decision that she wanted me to go to whatever school was the best for training. And I was just thinking about, where that is, and not really, people are like emotionally attached to the school that they go to and things like that. But I was just taking that out of the equation. And Penn State was the best place to go, best coaches, best training partners, and all that's proved to be true. So I decided that I would go to Penn State. And then my wife removed all of her applications except the one to Penn State. And then she actually ended up getting into Penn State. So now she's in medical school and I'm training. So it worked out well.
It sounds like, maybe that probably had a lot to do, your faith in God, obviously trusting that things would work out. How, I guess maybe let's kind of camp out there a little bit, just in athletics, there's a lot of things that can happen. There's a lot of different changes that can happen, even just like you were talking about at the beginning about how you weren't sure that the pandemic was going to come and you didn't expect the Olympics to be delayed, but you were saying, God had his hand on over all that. So how have you kind of grown in that aspect of your faith to just be able to trust, like maybe even just, where to be professionally, where to go, for your wife following this job? Because that stuff can take a lot of, we like to say as Christians, we have that faith and we have that ability to trust, but sometimes we don't always feel it. It's a hard thing to really grasp onto. But how have you kind of solidified that to where you're able to have that trust in God?
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite verses says, "He who is faithful in little is also faithful in much." So it's the small things that you do every day that allow you to be confident in the decisions you make, the bigger decisions in life. So just consistently studying God's word, consistently spending time in prayer, listening to God, thinking about God, when you're just in your house cleaning or whatever, and trying to making the effort to have a godly perspective in everything that you do. And then you start to experience his hand in things and experience change in your own life and overcoming different things working against you. And so then you can be more confident in everything else in your life.
A couple more questions here. Kyle Snyder, Olympic wrestler, joining us on the Sports Spectrum podcast. So as you look ahead, you got just a little bit of time left before you head out to Tokyo. What are there any things that you do different for sort of final preparations, or is it just sort of you continue with the same training and preparations that you've been doing, not really change up a ton? What does it look like when you're kind of in the final stretch about to head into the Olympics?
Yeah, for me, I've got a pretty dialed in training program in regards to, what I need to do each week and when I need to rest and when I need to compete. And that's what I've been working on this week, and I feel confident in it. So I got my summer planned out from the Olympics working back to now. And, it's similar to very similar program to, what I did to make the Olympic team. And now it'll just, be more focused on the format of the Olympics, wrestling 3 matches the first day and 1 match the next day, and getting prepared for that.
Yeah. I guess that's different than other tournaments, 3 matches 1 day and that sort of stuff. How do you navigate that? It seems like a lot. It feels like a lot of matches in 1 day.
Yeah. You just make sure that you're doing it in training, So
yeah,
like for the Olympic trials, I only had to wrestle 2 matches 1 day, and that was it. So that's what I was getting prepared for. But now I know this is the way it's going to be. So I will just do simulation tournaments and things like that in training.
Yeah. How much is, and I assume any high level tournament and event like this is probably similar, but how much of this is mental versus physical? Because you're talking about, wrestling 3 matches in a day versus 2. Because I feel like for some athletes, that's not just a physical training, but there's a lot of mental training for that too. So how much of this is you training mentally to prepare for that as much as it is physically?
A lot of mental training. I visualize every day, do a lot of things to make sure that my mind is focused, and a lot of that, they really go hand in hand, because one of the biggest problems in wrestling and sports in general is being overtrained. And when you're overtrained, you are less motivated and less mentally zoned in, So that causes problems in your technique. It causes problems with injury, causes problems with motivation. So that's the thing that I've been working on for a couple years now, just eliminating everything that isn't necessary to the main goal. So my goal is to tech fall everyone 10-0. And, I want to get down my training down to the point where I'm doing exactly what I need to do that. Nothing extra and nothing less. So it's just continually kind of looking back on your training and figuring out what is best.
It sounds to me like you've got a lot of discipline in your approach to each day, which I lived with a wrestler in college, and that was one thing I noted about him was how disciplined he was. He was very regimented about his schoolwork and everything, and kind of like you're saying, he wouldn't allow anything extra that he didn't need. He would focus on what he needed to do. So I feel like to be a high level athlete, it takes a high level of discipline. So it's no surprise hearing the way that you're kind of describing your approach that you've made it as high to a level as you have. But final question here. We always like to ask athletes, what is God teaching you right now in this season of life that you're in?
I just finished reading Revelation, and one of the things that was really stood out to me this time when I studied it was, God is telling us the end. He's already told us the end of the story. And, there's the images of, all the Christians standing before the throne and worshiping God, and that he's going to wipe away every tear, and there's not going to be any more pain, and we're going to be in his presence and all those things. And I was just thinking, like, that's me. I'm one of the people who are there. So what is there for me to worry about except that I trust him? And that's the only thing that I really need to do. And, everybody knows the passage where it says, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and everything else will be added to you, because, and then it says, so do not worry about tomorrow, for today has enough trouble on its own. Right. And the trouble that we have is trusting God. Yeah. The trouble isn't, what's going on in work, or the trouble isn't this guy's good at wrestling and I have to wrestle him or whatever, but it's just trusting God. And I've been encouraged by the fact that everything's already done in his mind. So I don't need to worry about anything.
That's great. That's a great approach, I think, especially in an uncertain time right now with the coronavirus and everything else that's going on. So love that approach. Kyle, thanks for joining us. He is Kyle Snyder, Olympic, hopefully repeat gold medalist at the 2020/2021. I don't know I guess we still call it 2020 Tokyo Olympics, but he will be wrestling August 6th and 7th, correct? Is that what you said?
Yep.
All right. So we will be rooting on Kyle August 6th and 7th as he goes to Tokyo to defend the gold medal and represent Team USA. Kyle, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
And many thanks to Kyle Snyder for joining us and sharing how things are going right now as he prepares for the 2020/2021 Summer Olympics and going to get another gold medal. We also appreciate our friend Cole Claiborne, a writer and producer with us here at Sports Spectrum, for conducting this podcast interview. Cole did such a good job. We appreciate him. And like we said before, you'll be hearing a few more episodes, hopefully, in the future from our friend Cole Claiborne. And we appreciate you guys for tuning in and listening. Again, make sure you go to the website, sign up for our weekly newsletter. You get a free gift, a daily devotional written by professional athletes when you sign up for our newsletter at sportspectrum.com. And then rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. Tell someone about this conversation with Kyle Snyder. Maybe send them a text with the link to listen to it. Maybe post it on your social media pages. Anything helps to get the word out as we continue to bring Jesus back into the conversation here on Sports Spectrum. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time right here on the show. Have a great rest of your day, and please do stay safe.